Hey guys, Matt. I'm going to start reading chapter 60 right away because it's very long. People have asked me, why am I putting out so much content? And one of the reasons I've been doing so much of this is, don't you just get the feeling we don't have all the time in the world to talk about this, to get as many people to see some of these things? I just get the feeling we don't have all the time in the world. Like there's a window or something. Not that there's some huge cataclysm's coming or the end of the world. I'm not saying that. It's just like like a reality between times or something. And I'm well aware of the astrological ages we're passing into Aquarius and all that, but I'm not just parroting that back. It feels like, I don't know, like there's some sort of a race against time or something. That's the way the minions are acting. They can't keep their bullshit up forever. So I did put this out a long time ago, but it was in total draft format. I felt it was important, so I put it out, but this is totally reworked and cleaned up. And as I cleaned it up, I don't even remember reading this to the channel, so you probably won't remember it either. But I don't know. I think we're getting towards the end of the book, and these are definitely the more important parts. One last thing. Many people here at this channel, of course, know all of this, but it's still an exercise in getting our minds right about certain things, and then the comments are used to refine that. We constantly are getting ourselves right so we can communicate with others, because we don't just bash them over the head anymore with this information. See, it's not just me, what I know, telling you what you already know, and we're just massaging each other's backs. I do think it's more important than that. Even I might put things in a certain way, or get you think about something you already know, but in a different way. It all helps refine the way we take this message out and carry it around between all of us. It's not that it's just being shared back and forth and we're not getting anywhere, or we're just spinning our wheels. I don't think that's the case at all. Chapter 60. This life sometimes seems like a prison, but a prison only as it appears from our earthly 3D perspective. A prison only as it appears from the avatar looking out, or whatever aspect of us is, quote, potentially trapped in the body. Now, from the perspective of those we call the controllers, this life or this realm may be a farm. From the perspective of another aspect of ourselves, this may be a school, and that may come with a test, or it may not come with a test. So we have one realm possibly being three completely different things to three different things, to two aspects of yourself and to the creatures. One realm doing potentially three things. Which one of those three is right? Which of the two are wrong? Likely all three are correct. Doesn't mean any of it has to be wrong. So here saying again, another aspect of ourself relates to how that we've said consciousness most likely or almost definitely at this point resides somewhere else. Consciousness not just shoved behind the eyes and between the ears and the pile of mashed potatoes of the skull. Come on, that's just obvious at this point that that's just not all about where consciousness comes from. So one realm is three different things all at the same time. Now, very few smart people think all of us, every bit of us, resides inside the flesh and the skin, meaning consciousness is somewhere else. Spiritually, we are somewhere else. Now, hopefully, the flesh and the avatar body is no more than a virtual reality headset, and hopefully nothing may literally be inside the flesh. However, it's unlikely. The minions don't act like that. We can figure a lot out by seeing how the minions act. They act like we're Carol Ann. So whatever life essence is here with us, we got to protect it. Protect it from whatever they're out to do to it. Protect it from their loosh. Make sure it's not degraded and potentially horcruxed. The minions give themselves away. This is where, again, the atheist and the atheist argument makes no sense, because the entire grand play here is all about them just getting in our business. And why would they give a shit if we were just fleshy, stinky stuff going into the dirt? Even if this realm was meant to be a really hard school, or a school with a test that has to be passed, all of that is likely. But it still appears that reality at some point was hijacked. Again, I've suggested, others have suggested, of course, that the hijackers are actually just fulfilling their role here to help you and I with our life test, to be part of the life test. Hillary Clinton's part of the life test, and to do no more or no less. It just seems evil, but if it's necessary, is it evil? But forget that. Ignore that for now. Let's just go back to the hijacking part. There's no doubt this realm has been degraded and bastardized by a tiny group to benefit themselves. There's too much war, poverty, disease, hate, immeasurable equality for all of this to have risen naturally. Just the best all of us can do. We got to where we are today just doing the best we could do. No, it's been warped, and all of it has been by design. A $4 trillion abomination takes half your paycheck, and you get nothing for that $4 trillion it takes. Sorry. So if you're over 65, you get the Medicare and the Medicaid and the Social Security. If you're under 65, you get nothing for $4 trillion. You don't even get roads. That's all done through the state. Oh, you get military. Yeah, that's so important. There's so many people attacking us. $600 billion a year. That couldn't be used for anything useful, could it? No, it's just everything around us is not natural. It's not in the nature of men and women to slaughter each other in the millions, decade after decade, back through time immemorial. Somebody's screaming at their computer right now. Women aren't a part of that, Matt. Women aren't the decision makers beyond that war. Fine. And then let me forget that. It's not in the nature of men to slaughter ourselves over and over again, hundreds and hundreds of years back through time immemorial. It's not natural. It's a rigged reality. We and our ancestors have been manipulated into participating in the never-ending blood sacrifice of war. Up to this moment, the human species has been extremely dumb. We're brainwashed into thinking war must always be present in our reality, year after year. But that's absurd. Is a state of peace so hard to come by when you really think about it? I mean, if anybody just stopped to think, the masses on the street, my goodness, what we could accomplish. Nobody stops to think about any of this stuff for even a second. Today's young men and women in the military are generally fine people. And even they participate in this pointless death, fighting cooked up enemies generation after generation. Sure, there's some jihadi in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and Iraq, shooting back at our military. That's all real. But the controllers have crafted the conditions so both sides fight each other, each believing their cause is just. Imagine how easy it was for the creeps and the controlling creeps to rouse armies with their lies centuries ago, if they can do it now. Centuries ago, there wasn't even anything to even refer to, like the fake news. I might say, well, today's fake news, Matt, actually helps them craft more war because they can drum up more bullcrap and more rumors through the internet. And that is possible. It just seemed like it would be even easier to carry out the lies back in the day. But maybe not. Maybe it's actually easier today. I'll reconsider that. There's always been killing in the name. It's just the name may change over time. Today's name is terrorism. 1,500 years ago, it was religion. Still is religion to some degree. But, they just shift the reason for war, the reason for the death. Today's name and killing in the name is terrorism. A problem that, for the most part, doesn't even exist. The degree of hell that plays out in front of us every day in this world is not normal or organic. The yin to its yang, the heaven, seems to be growing weaker by the year. Sure, we can walk through the woods in beautiful serenity to the sounds of birds and brook and crisp air, but then we'll look down and receive a tweet about another 1,000 people dying in Syria. Think of certain special moments with your pets or children, and then think of the politician who's trying to molest them. The perversion of what we see every night on the news certainly leads anyone paying attention to understand there is a dark element here. Yes, the dark element's role may be actually helping us fulfill our life's purpose, or at least a few of us. again, we're forgetting that for now. If that's their role, they seem extremely pleased to fulfill their role. That is, all minions of all types generally like their role. Whether it be these minions or storybook minions. Vampires love to suck the blood, don't they? Now, we're told there have been diplomats sitting around talking for 100 years since the League of Nations about how to end war. After World War I, we're going to create the League of Nations, and it's going to end war because it's so horrific. Not only have they not been able to achieve it, which was their only goal for assembling these groups, I remind you, but wars have actually increased since they started talking. Now, this is all by design. It's all on purpose. It's very simple. If nobody likes horrible death and destruction, and you can sample random people on the street, and do you like death and destruction? You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a few yeses, but mostly no's. If everybody thinks the same way about death and destruction, why should war be so hard to end? We're just all brainwashed and convinced it's so difficult to end war. When you think about it at the root level, it should end in 5 minutes. It proves it's all cooked up. It's all crafted by design. It's not hard to end. They don't want to end it. They love war. After World War II, League of Nations was World War I. After World War II, a new friendly international body was created. They told you the reason for the United Nations was, again, to end war. Because we just went through even a worse one, World War II. Some people say World War I was worse. They're about the same, I guess, in terms of worse. Glad I wasn't in either of them. It's just hell created by the minions. They told you the reason for the United Nations was, again, to end war. The results show it was another fake story. The UN exists to perpetuate the ruse that most people buy into, that this never-ending chaos, never-ending death, never-ending disease on Earth is just the best we humans can do in a complicated system. Quote, leaders are just doing their best. It's not hard to prove there's a sinister element here pulling the strings. Most people sitting around the UN, though, are not in on it. Most of the people that go into the UN are not in on it as bloodthirsty demons. This reality in some way masterfully convinces people, the people going into the UN, that certain actions that lead to more war are inevitable. And it's just the best, again, we can do in a complicated system. They're not literal vampires. How the Pied Piper of this reality plays the flute and to get groups to do exactly what it wants is incredible. The evil genius here. That's why I call it the reality generation machine. Okay, I don't think there's a final boss level, but it's wonderful how it pulls the worst or corrupts almost everybody that it can corrupt. Now, like we've talked about, the reality generation and the minions are getting more and more pathetic in their ability to pull off these ruses. They've lost all their credibility. They've lost, for lack of better words, a degree of their power. So the old days, going to war made perfect sense. The South against the North, or horrible Hitler in Japan in World War II. And everybody on both sides of war was convinced it was absolutely just on both sides. But it's breaking down. We have a joke, a pathetic joke, Colin Powell, going into the UN before the Gulf War, showing blurry slides about Saddam's mobile weapons labs and, ridiculous presentations that the people, for some reason, are still buying into to lead them into war. Moving WMDs out of satellite view in old Jack and Jill ice cream trucks would have been more believable if old Colin presented that. Sorry, Colin, appropriately named. Unfortunately, the evil influence, the evil force I call hijackers, have been winning here for a very long time. There's no balance. How do we know they're winning? Or have been winning? Because there's no balance anymore between the heaven and hell on this realm that I believe at one point was in balance. Completely out of whack, the amount of heaven versus hell. Now, as more ugliness propagates over this realm, new beauty can't be added to the other side of the scale very quickly, can it, to offset the new hell? More beauty can't be easily manufactured as more hell can. More hell on this planet can be ordered with same-day delivery, with the push of a button that launches a missile. More hell can come quicker than a Domino's pizza in this realm today. Now, a new species of flower, or a beautiful jungle cat, or a magnificent tree doesn't just spawn overnight. A new species or something new that provides heaven on this realm. Even planting a simple rose garden takes a ton of time and effort and attention. Why isn't the industrial age of this modern society assembly line and its just-in-time manufacturing, why isn't it using all that productive creativity to create, essentially, for lack of a better word, more rose gardens instead of more missiles? Because it never creates more heaven, just constantly ways to lay down more hell. It shows you what kind of creature is behind the curtain. As you listen to this, somebody's niece is being raped and a convenience store clerk is being shot. Yes, this reality can dump new hell as quickly as the buckets in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and we feel like Lucy in the chocolate factory, trying to keep up with it all the time. Why are the pursuits of modern man always about creating things that bring about more hell, like a new type of bomb or email? You don't think the invention of email is creating more hell? Did anybody really just say that email brings efficiency to the workplace via enhanced technology? Tell that to the 500 million business executives around the world who work every day of their vacation and have email up every Sunday night until they go to bed. Can anybody name an invention or anything, quote, of man in the last 100 years that is designed to bring about more heaven on earth? More beauty? Okay, fine. Certain works of music may be the best argument on that side, but does that counterbalance a few 100 million dead piled on top of each other on the other side of the scale? I don't think so. Even in the area of medicine, there's just more disease, no new cures. I understand I'm being overly negative. Ultimately, there's a very positive outcome here. I've gotten into the negative mode here. Let's hope it's temporary. Stick with me. Treatments for patients improve, of course. But that's where the money's made. Just keep them alive, keep treating. Both a cured and a dead patient don't pay very well. Some may say more beauty comes in this realm through artwork. Okay, sure. There's some nice pieces, but an occasional watercolor can't balance out Syria, or 10 million uninsured, or any other hellish aspect of life under attack by these bastards, these controllers. Even the most basic ways humans have naturally created more heaven in the past is under attack. Look at music and art today versus years ago, decades ago, or centuries past. Tell me about the good artists and good musicians of today that aren't relegated to little clubs that nobody knows about. Who's any good? Justin Timberlake? We just have the same recycled retreads decade after decade in this stalled century, like Bono and Mick Jagger. As average as they are, there's no new artists of equal standing taking their place. There's no younger generation of great musicians or anything of art coming up. So what we have is an absurd situation of 75-year-olds and 80-year-old men out on tour. And guess what? You think it'll be their last tour? No way. The new artists that exist, what we call the younger generation, are mindless puppets who recite raps like Gucci Gang. That dumb jerk who rapped Gucci Gang didn't even write that useless piece of shit. Of course he didn't write it. I won't even call it a song. I won't even call the person moving his mouth a singer. I don't know what that thing is. Again, I'm understanding how negative this section is. We have to understand basically the predicament that we're in to come out the other side in the correct fashion. So maybe an expression of duality of this realm at some point in the past there was a perfect balance potentially of heaven and hell here. And it was up to free spirits and up to free will to move towards the heaven side, like moving towards a pole of a magnet, or to decide, via free will, to contribute to the hell. A famous sci-fi novel series by Michael Moorcock presents this concept as a timeless battle between law and chaos. In this Elric series, Elric is the champion, E-L-R-I-C. In this Elric series, each side has its pantheon of gods and its minions and demigods that fight for either law or chaos. In Elric's Earth-like realm, chaos dominates. In other realms, the gods of law rule. However, Moorcock stresses that a balance between the forces is absolutely necessary. The realm of, quote, absolute law is a white, lifeless void when it's absolute. The realm of absolute chaos is a demonic mess where nothing can hold shape for more than a second. The author, Michael Moorcock, stresses that a world of absolute law sounds good, right? The opposite of chaos. But absolute law is just as bad as absolute chaos. There must be a balance. The eternal champions of the book fight on both sides to make sure both sides are in balance. When one side becomes more powerful or out of check, the eternal champions fight on the other side to return balance. Now, I almost see this as our role, the mutants here. This realm, at this point, is completely out of balance. Heaven and hell on the scale. It is out of whack. It has never been more out of whack. We sense that. We fight for the side now that's getting crushed in order to potentially restore it. Congratulations. You are an incarnation of Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion. But again, we don't want to be too focused on the screen. Fighting to restore what the screen should be. And the balance of heaven and hell here and what nature should present. That's all wonderful, but that comes as a byproduct for what we do for ourselves. It comes as a byproduct. It's nothing to reach out and fight like we've been over many, many times. The ability to fight it first has to come from improvement within. Unfortunately, the existing hell here, all the hell they've done over hundreds and hundreds of years, everything that exists all around us doesn't seem good enough for the chaos lords of this earth. The University of Hawaii, via their papers on democide, say about 250 million dead in the 20th century. Oh, not from war, from their own governments. Their own governments, 250 million dead. That may include types of civil war. It doesn't include World War I and II. Do you know how sick that is? And people line up to go vote for more of it. No, the existing hell isn't good enough for the bastards. It seems they always want more hell, like insatiable vampires. Their perversion is unchecked right now in history. They also work the other side of the equation by trying to destroy what little heaven exists. You know, we have a little bit of heaven left, and they're getting in our business on that too. If you create an accountant's balance sheet of heaven and hell on opposing sides of the ledger, we see the hellish side grow daily. On Monday, another war. Tuesday, a new disease. Wednesday, more working homeless in California. On Thursday, Bruce Jenner. On Friday, another Kanye West album. As of this, I get mad, guys, but then I gotta let the steam off and laugh. We all do. If you have a bad week, what new heaven is created by this system to balance that out? A new Gucci Gang song? What's more, what is on the heaven side of the balance sheet is blatantly under attack. The heaven's under attack. The bastards aren't happy with just the hell they're producing. You know, let's do an inventory right now. Let's do an inventory of our heavenly assets and how we're faring in each of these major areas. Major area 1, art. All the master painters died a few hundred years ago. Name the new artist replacing Monet, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, etc., etc. This society creates modern art and shows us exhibits of a lopped-off elephant's head in cement, or it shows us a single blotch of color on a white canvas, and they tell us it's very good. Modern art is an intentional abomination. This is not a degradation or naturally occurring in society or a depreciation of talent over time, nor a change in audience tastes. If you've read this far in the book, you're probably not surprised by my take on modern art. I'm rather sure and confident that it is made bad on purpose. I'll be the first to admit that I am no art expert, Yet I would point to Pablo Picasso as the gateway artist that crossed humanity over from the ancient masters to the modern shit. Very few people under age 50 have spent any time looking at Picasso's paintings. If you're under 50, you don't know Picasso. If you're over 50 or 60 or 70 and 80 years old, Picasso was a bigger deal to that generation. But if you look, what you will find, and using a professional term reserved for artisans, you'll find Picasso sucked moose. At first glance, the paintings show little artistic ability. Now, I understand artistic talent is more than just being able to make a banana in a painting look like a real banana. But realism has always been a major area in which the old masters were graded, even if they didn't always paint in a realistic fashion like Monet. First and foremost, the old paintings, many of them, especially portraits of course, had to look real. Swirling color around haphazardly on a canvas is a recent phenomenon. Picasso, compared to a Da Vinci and others, scores an F in realism. An F. As a kid, I remember my grandfather had hung my French is so good you won't believe this. He hung the Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, the young ladies of Avignon. He hung the young ladies up in his bathroom, believe it or not, in Morgantown, PA. Every time I went in there, I'd stare at these creatures. Now, it should be called, instead of the young ladies of Avignon, it should be called the nuclear fallout. Screws over Avignon. As these ladies look more like Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he cracked his helmet on Mars at the end of that movie. Now, no doubt, this painting is considered one of Picasso's most celebrated works. However, a sixth grader has drawn more realistic faces doodling in class, waiting for the bell to ring. Now, did my grandfather, do I think he loved this painting? No. I'm almost sure he didn't even really like it. He was an educated man, and I believe he hung the painting, not because he liked it, but because he was told by others it was very good, because he was told by society that this is the apex or pinnacle of what art can be. That's why he hung it. Regarding education or keeping up with those he considered sophisticated, he did run with the Joneses. Incorrectly. I don't think he was his own man in this regard. I'm not cutting him up. He was very, very smart in many other areas. Because of the circumstances in which my grandfather grew up, I'm sure it was an attempt of his to show class and taste by hanging the ladies of Avignon. Have you ever seen it? It looks like a bunch of deformed women. I don't know what they are. You wouldn't touch these women if you were stuck on a Gilligan's Island with them for 100 years. Now, authority, quote, end quote, told us that the Les Demoiselles, that Frenchman, I might, send a resume into the UN. They might take me as a bilingual to communicate with the French. The authority told us that was artistic mastery. And my grandfather and everyone else just went along with it. This is a common theme in society, of course. Now, this is the case with almost all modern art. Modern art and music, modern music, moves all of us collectively 1 degree further away from the path of a true human being. And that's exactly what it's designed to do. Because I'm sure there are a few people confused in one area, let me one final time use this example to explain how almost everyone is not in on it. If they're screwing over society as a whole and have a role in doing it, they're not aware of it. We know that, but we'll do it one more time here. If I say, for example, crap pieces of modern art are being pushed out as great works, the artists themselves have no idea what's going on. They're not in on anything, of course. The artists themselves believe in what they're doing. The puppet masters on Mount Olympus have led the entire process in a non-human direction from the start. They've led art away from the human direction. The artists with an affinity toward modern art have been pushed to the forefront and pushed up to the top with some degree of fame and fortune, pushed up to the top by the system itself, while leaving others, or the more traditional artists, say, behind. If there are artists pushing sick, nonsensical, inhuman presentations in the art galleries, Well, then the system always has a James Alefantis type waiting to take these pieces of shit into their galleries. Now, old James was known for more than a pizza place. He's known for more than old Comet ping pong and wearing a rubber suit or rubber clothing or whatever he was trying to wear. James runs a modern art gallery in Washington, D.C. Boy, that's surprising. Then there's this. What type of art and art galleries get the funding? Young artists then notice who's getting all the accolades, who's getting the press, and they copy the techniques to support their own careers. That was the category art. Let's do the next category, music. I'm sure nobody's holding their breath this is going to be any better. Talented artists advertise the dates that they'll be playing in tiny little clubs on the internet, but the music pushed nationally, and those that receive fame and fortune, and those who play giant arenas and stadiums, that music has been abysmal since about 1995 or so. Even things like the grunge movement of, say, 1990 was system created, in my opinion. Let me repeat that. I believe this grunge movement was system created. But at least it was very good. No doubt it was good. Rap music is beloved by the mainstream, which is the face of this system, because rap creates a culture that destroys everything it touches. Calling every woman in the world hoe and biatch is just wonderful, wonderful for the nuclear family, don't you think? So is glamorizing drug pushing and glamorizing drive-by shootings. All started decades ago with the movie Boys in the Hood. They use rap and they use hip-hop to teach inner-city youth to carry a gun and to teach them that all that really matters in life is the respect you get from driving a Bentley. And if you're disrespected by someone, this music tells young minds that it's okay to kill them. How wonderful! Doughboy, a modern-day hero. What's up, Doe? What's up, G? Doughboy, Ice Cube in that movie, a modern-day hero, positioned as such to a whole population. That is sad. People think all of this just grew up organically in the streets of Compton. It didn't. It was obviously pushed down by Mount Olympus. Even music has been weaponized by the sinister element that reigns here. Think about it. We went, in a few hundred years, from Mozart to Men at Work. Do you think Tchaikovsky would cite a Vegemite sandwich in his lyrics? That's a wrong way progression for music, even if the lines with Brussels full of mussels was funny. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I just suspect that Snoop Dogg, in his triple album CD, I think with Dr. Dre, yelling out in the song itself, triple platinum, that every young person in the country bought, he yelled out, Luke can eat a big fat dick. This person can eat a big fat dick. I'm not making it up. It's in there. Trust me, it's in there. They just decided to take that little bit out of for the radio version. It was close. They almost left it in, but they decided in the end to take it out. So that's taking it down even lower than Men at Work. It's a wrong way progression, and we're only two in. We did art, now we're in music. But right now, there's a women's march against the band's name, Men at Work, asking Congress to overturn their copyright protection like they did the Washington Redskins, Men at Work. That is very restrictive and discriminatory. Going away from rap music, pop music since the year about 2000 has been dumbed down nonsense. Of course, in almost all cases, the artist doesn't even write the song themselves. With computer programs able to do almost anything with a voice, it's likely many don't even sing the songs themselves in what would be considered their natural voice. The system simply finds people who sell, but don't ever think they do it for money as the main motivation. This system's main motivation is never money. I'm trying to get that through to people in the last few weeks, as you probably know. People still aren't getting it. It's no way is it about money. The system doesn't need money. The reason for everything that appears in pop culture is far more sinister, for lack of a better word. It's about degrading an entire population into a soulless entity. The phrase, steal our soul, or something's going to steal your soul, maybe it's not about what happens at death. Maybe it's all about what happens every day to people in this 666 3D realm. What's the next category? Nature. Okay. Destroy the rainforest and destroy everything natural, at least as much as you can if you're the system. They pave paradise and put up a parking lot. The Chaos Lords destroy it, they do it themselves, and then they blame it on global warming. Today's scam got a name change. One day they simply started talking about climate change and pretended they had always been talking about climate change, when in fact for 2 decades they were talking about global warming. Well, climate change, that's much better. That way you win if it gets too hot or too cold. If anything effed up happens to the climate, you can just call it climate change. If a bird craps the wrong way out of a tree, you can call it climate change. It's the catch-all for everything. And people are going along with it, just bowing down to it, and are deceived by it. But what else is new? Then we're still in the concept of nature. What else can you do to really screw it up? You could create a weaponized tick and turn it loose on the population with Lyme disease, because Zika virus is such a big problem with 5 people in Florida getting a flu-like symptom for about a week. They needed to create a new breed of Franken mosquitoes that can kill the mosquitoes that carry the horrible Zika virus, which is patented and owned by the Rockefeller Foundation. True story. Now, you can guess if you make the Franken mosquitoes, to fight the Zika, which is so bad it made 5 people a little sick, what may happen someday? The Franken mosquitoes may end up carrying something a lot worse. And if it happens, it will be all by design. And let me go away from the book for a second to applaud those total asshole idiot golfers, of which maybe Rory McIlroy might have been one, and these golfers didn't go down to Brazil. I can understand the women's soccer team. They cooked up so much bullcrap regarding Zika. Remember years ago? It was Zika, 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 all day, all night on the news, Zika all the time. Almost got T-shirts printed Zika across everything. I can understand the women's soccer team because, look, they believe the news. They believe this bullcrap. Not everybody's going to see through this crap like we do. And apparently, if you get pregnant, if you had Zika, your baby will come out like Rosemary's Baby. It's a microcephaly with a gigantic head and the body the size of a stick figure. And okay, I understand that. But grown men, not going down because of Zika, like Rory McIlroy and some of these golfers that didn't go to the Olympics, you scum of the earth, weak little people. Give me a break. Let's go to another subset here inside the nature section. The California wildfires of 2016 through 2018 weren't natural. After I saw about 20 pictures of buildings completely burned to nothing, with the trees and bushes around it, just basically untouched, just completely green and full of life, it was clear something was amiss. There are hundreds of pictures of leveled structures surrounded by green trees and bushes. Now there's nothing at all left of most of these houses. Nothing at all. That's unnatural. Even the porcelain and steel is almost all gone. And these things, amongst others, have melting temperatures easily a few hundred degrees above what any wildfire can produce. So how does a building go down to flat to nothing? Almost like a little 9/11 phenomenon. Now, also in every picture I looked at regarding the California fires during the time period, for some weird reason, in the picture, taken just a few days later, the street was completely clean. Look at the old pictures. Go ahead. These streets are perfectly clean. It's like a weird reality breakdown. Like a street cleaner. The fires were still burning. There were still embers and smoke. The street cleaners pulled up and they're ready to go. Some trees were across the street. They're like, well, let us get in there and clean. Let us get in there and clean. No street cleaners came through a few days after the fire. The streets should have been covered in thousands of small pieces of debris in the pictures taken only a few days after these fires. And the one guy screaming at me in, Kalamazoo, he's yelling at me right now. He's saying, the street cleaners, they went in a few days later and, they just cleaned everything up because that was the right thing to do after these fires. No, the fires took out entire communities. They weren't real eager to get the streets clean 3 days later. If I agree, if there were large objects blocking traffic or something or restricting access, like trees down, those would have been cleared, of course. However, entire neighborhoods Again, we're destroyed. Bringing in the street cleaners with the rotating brushes and bristles, wouldn't make any sense. Maybe that's something you do a month later. Okay, but not that anything here makes any sense. Now, if these fires were set intentionally, and all the evidence, like the real evidence, points to the fact that they were set intentionally. No, I'm not going to get into laser beams from space or anything. What's the difference? They're set intentionally by the system. They're set intentionally. And if you come to that conclusion, think about the absolute monsters we are dealing with here. I think of the wildlife. Billions of trees and bushes and insects and wildlife perished. Billions. People died, sure. And overall, though, the bigger picture is billions of living things gone from those fires. The karma sandwich will be coming for these creatures someday. Let's go on to another category. Remember, the categories we're doing here are the different aspects of the heaven that still, exists in this realm. And the creatures and the minions, they're not messing with the aspects of heaven that's still left, right? They're just creating hell and they're leaving our heaven alone. But we haven't found that in art, we haven't found that in music, we haven't found that in nature. And what's next? General relaxation, the human experience, just learning, free time, and people living their lives to a certain degree of high quality. Let's see how we're doing. The system generally says in this area, destroy it. Working 9 to 5 and 40 hours a week? That's no longer good enough. You must work 60 hours. And real entrepreneurs, you work over 80. And at least in the United States, that's supposed to be a cool thing if you work all the time. Actually, fuck it. Work all the time. Because your work email never stops. You essentially are working all the time if you're a certain executive in certain types of businesses. Your email comes in all night long. It comes in all Sunday night. Now, people listening to this may envy somebody who has a big corporate job with Pfizer or Exxon. Because, hey, they make a decent amount of money, right? And we envy that. They have an expense account. Don't do it. There are tens of millions of these people who are never, for the most part, off email. And when they shut the computer down, they walk out, take the kids to Ruby Tuesdays or Applebee's or something, that the work email goes off in their pocket on their phone. On Sunday night, it's like being at the office with preparation for Monday. Every night of the vacation, it doesn't stop. Well, what about away from work? Well, if you're the system, you want to make sure the population believes they have to run around and keep up with the Joneses all the time for your kids. Now, even though the bus stop is just a block from the home, you parents must wait in your cars at the bus stops to make sure the kids aren't immediately snatched up the second they step off the bus by some Buffalo Bill type that's just lying in wait. Now, for the person yelling at me right now that, Matt, real predators are out there and we have to protect our kids. Yeah, no kidding. I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. But it's the same sick individuals that existed when I got off the bus in 1978. There were never any parents waiting at the bus stop for any kids in grades above kindergarten when I went to grade school. If a kid in my third grade class had his mommy waiting for him at the bus stop, he would have gotten beaten up and bullied, and rightfully so, teased to a degree where you would have had to drop out of school. I don't think the incidence rate or the amount of sickos is way up from those days. That's what they want you to believe. The sicko rate is probably about the same. This is simply a culture they've created. Even if the email is switched off, the social media on the cell phone will buzz endlessly, showing all the things in life your friends are doing and that you are missing out on. My Matrix friend even has a name for it. FOMO. Fear of missing out. Okay, what's the next category of the heaven that's still in this realm? And see if they're trying to get in our business. Family and kids. Is divorce going up or down? Then the system will push the gay and transgender lifestyles. That does wonders if you actually think that Ward and June Cleaver and the nuclear family is a good thing for kids. Of course, black families and black communities were targeted first and destroyed on purpose a long time ago. Kids over age 12 always thought their parents were square. Of course they did. Nobody over age 12 thinks their parents are cool. But this culture and school system is creating an entirely new species of youngin'. We don't recognize what these kids are anymore. Perhaps Darwin can finally be proven right. The species of child being raised today on iPhones may not be the same species as their parent. Call Darwin and make it into a scientific experiment. What's the next category of living well in modern society? Best revenge is living well. Category is called health. If you're the system, cure nothing for about half a century. All this technology, modern wonders of tech and electron microscopes, and just cure nothing for half a century. But 80, 100 years ago, science could get control. It could introduce penicillin. There were certain things like a smallpox vaccination that actually worked. I know the entire truth community is just ready to parrot that every possible vaccination is just bad. No, it's only bad because an evil system of demons is kind of using it to destroy health. The idea behind it is sound. Don't just parrot because that's what you heard on other truth channels. Think it through first. It's only bad, just like the all-seeing eye, just like the swastika. It's only bad because of what the system got its sticky little fingers into it. Okay, but the point is, smallpox and the eradication of certain diseases happened 100 years ago, but it can't happen in the last 50 years with a modern tech. That makes perfect sense. You just create more pills. You had all these giant pharmas to just create more pills. You could just keep treating it, because that costs a lot of money. That keeps a lot of people suffering, but a lot of people in the pharmacy industry, keeps them very happy because you're buying the pills. And then you just jack cancer rates up thousands of % with autism and depression and fibromyalgia right behind. And hey, never fear. If the incidence rates of these diseases are going up by thousands of %, there'll be a lot of walks for the cure. A lot of walks for a cure that never comes. There'll be a whole month of wearing pink inside football stadiums. And the jackasses on the field will sport pink towels in their uniforms. And they'll wear pink shoes. And they'll think they're doing something useful. It's as useful as pissing on a popsicle. Now, they're absolute experts at keeping people alive for decades. But whatever people have is never cured. The system says, keep suffering, you poor devils. They say, we can keep doing it to you because you never question why the cure never comes. You just go do your walks like we tell you to do. Obviously, these lists could go on and on. This is a sick society crafted to be just the way it is. It is not the best we can do. On the health side of the ledger, additional aspects of human freedom fall behind enemy lines monthly. For example, quote, healthcare, or the healthcare system, as it's delivered in the United States, was moved from a regular prisoner to death row just a few years ago by something called Obamacare, the executioner of it called Obamacare, which after all of that bullshit and lawsuits and $1 trillion spent and every state putting in new regulation and exchanges and bullshit, it made the entire situation much worse. In the fight for freedom versus tyranny, the movement of armies has only been one-sided for a long time. The side of the regular people like you and me generally doesn't even realize there's a war going on in the first place. They feed and quarter the opposing troops while singing songs about their flag. It's not your flag, it's theirs. No doubt there are beautiful moments still to experience here on this earth, and I have been overly negative. I'm aware of that. Little bit of heaven still exists. We can hold on to it. We can foster it. We can expand it. But the suffering, disease, war, anxiety, fear, and stress continuously creeps to new heights month by month, year after year. It's all by design. Let's look at this one aspect. The ability to legally smoke a natural plant should not be considered a big win for human freedom. People made this the ability to smoke weed in certain states. What a win! What a win for human freedom. We're really getting them now. Boy, we're really going places. Restoring a natural right that always should have been is not a victory. Being able to do what you want to do with a plant that grows naturally without fear of jail is not a big win. It's a natural right. Here's an analogy. If a thief steals your watch, And the thief wears the watch for 20 years and goes scuba diving with it, and it wasn't meant to go underwater, and then leaves it in the sand and runs over the watch with his pickup truck and the glass is all smashed. Then one day just decides to leave it on your doorstep, giving it back to you. Is that a big win for you? No, I didn't think so. So things like the legalization of pot are simply bones the controllers throw the crowd, like bread was used in the Colosseum. So people believe that there's some sort of democratic freedom at play here. They throw us a bone every so often, and we should be so happy about it. Awesome! Every 10 years or so, we the people get one thing that we want, while at the same time being placed under a few thousand laws that we don't want. Boy, this American freedom is the best because we get that one thing. Let's sing a song before the kickoff to praise it. They ask us to jerk off with sandpaper for 10 years, and we should jump for joy when one day a year they pass out some free lube. To influence the world in a one-sided fashion, modern society is now a well-crafted script delivered by who we call puppet masters. The main aim of this script is to trick humanity. It's that simple. The trick has a million different moving parts that coordinates to produce outcomes that lead the herd in the same direction, the direction they want the herd headed. Each outcome is designed to draw power back towards those who deliver the script while removing energy from those who are being tricked. If you don't like the term, quote, chaos lords, those who infest Washington, D.C., infest the City of London and the Vatican, if you don't like chaos lords, or there are other terms, plug in whatever you want. Plug in archons. That's pretty much the best general term that describes what we're dealing with here. And even if the old descriptions aren't exactly right, the actions in this realm, or their actions, are akin to a virus or an energy vampire. Because nobody knows exactly what or who is behind the final dark curtain here, and like we've said, a final dark curtain or boss level probably doesn't even exist. It's the nature of the reality itself to produce the crap that it does. But either way, it's almost certain that whatever's coordinating this, in association with the minions, are not, quote, normal men or, quote, normal women. If they are, they're not using, then for sure not using, normal means to influence all of us and to influence reality itself. Something else is going on here. Something we can't perceive, something we can't comprehend. We will ponder it from time to time, but we're done chasing it. There's a difference. They want it being chased. They dangle the breadcrumbs in order for us to chase it, as we've been over many times. The main technique used for strengthening their position is generally by making those around them who they wish to control weaker, sicker, and dumber. Now some would say fatter too, but people do that to themselves. The system now mandates calorie totals be placed on value meal menu boards, which makes it look like Big Brother actually cares about people's health. They expanded the program because people weren't put off by the number 677 next to the word Whopper. How are the creatures winning so successfully? You look at it, and all the gains of the creatures have been accomplished by effectively hiding humanity from what he or she really is. They've been able to erase our history, hide abilities mankind once possessed. They've been able to lower intelligence and cement a perpetual state of learned helplessness in the population. But they appear to be builders who cannot pick up Thor's hammer themselves in this reality, so they must get us to do the work for them. Since the, quote, great work never benefits us directly, we must be tricked into believing that we want the same reality that they do. We must be tricked into it, like a Jedi mind trick. You want the reality we want. Yes, sir, I want the reality you want. Now, this is the way the game is played in the West, at least. Using an analogy, we, collectively, are beautiful butterflies. The controllers are cattle ranchers. They've successfully convinced the butterflies to munch on steak. Let's expand on this food theme. It's kind of like we're all in a giant restaurant. Their favorite meals populate the menu. Their favorite meals are on the menu. But these are the foods we'd never choose for ourselves. Yesterday's special was called Obamacare. A few decades ago, there was a special called 80,000-page tax code. The script tells us the main course served in our dining hall is quite good, especially when compared to the way others are eating around the world. We look down at today's dinner, a smelly fish with the head still on, and we're very thankful we aren't ordering in the Syrian cafe. People are brainwashed into believing this crappy fare is the best a complicated system of restaurants can do for so many hungry mouths in what they call a democracy. The rationalization is, it's certainly better than the way those poor devils eat in Africa. Could it be that simple? Is Africa and other parts of the world kept in squalor simply to fool us dummies in the West into thinking we have it good? As crazy as that sounds, people that have been at this a long time would not take that off the table. The biggest question we have pops up over and over again. Why is it that so many of our friends, family, and neighbors love the shit sandwich served in the restaurant with a smile? Years ago, why didn't we notice it ourselves? But today's script is so absurd, we wonder how anybody can be fooled by it any longer. That's the question that now perplexes us so. Why don't they notice that the food served by those that have placed themselves in control here is just shit inside of fresh bread? Why don't people demand better? One reason is, of course, they've been bred not to recognize that what's inside the bun is shit. The main strategy for implementing the initial deception has been accomplished through several forms of mind control that we've been over many times. These little phone devices, black scrying mirrors that people stare into 4 or 5 hours a day, do more than just distract from the smell of shit in the sandwich served. Someone on Facebook posts a picture of their shit sandwich, and you think it's better than yours. There are reasons people don't see what so clearly we observe. The final evolution of the theory on this concerns literal veils and shared thought forms, which make people, quite literally, not able to see the real world. Quite literally not able to see the world for what it is. The theories about the sole reason for all of this being a desire to protect one's worldview, that no longer goes far enough. That's no longer good enough. For a long time, they've been deconstructing and reconstructing the human being, with each successive version designed to be more focused on the ego and more focused on the fleeting avatar body, and less focused on spiritualism and the divine aspect of oneself. In fact, the immortal nature of what we are has been so effectively hidden that, as a byproduct, the system has created millions of atheists who think we all got here because something in the universe blowed up. So when I light off a firecracker, it makes me wonder if I'm God and I'm creating another universe at the sound of every firecracker I set off on the 4th of July. Atheism, or a population devoid of knowing their true nature, has also been achieved by hijacking religion and tainting it with Jim Baker types and issues like the Boston Archdiocese pedophilia scandals. Secondarily, the maitre d's of the menu here have introduced, quote, science and technology as the new god of this realm. K through 12 is an endless brainwashing, convincing you that you are just an ant on an anthill in an endless cosmos of lifelessness. Right, Carl Sagan? Billions and billions and billions of lifeless nothing. Carl Sagan, thou art a villain. Of course, the ego is the aspect of human consciousness that is directly attached to this 3D realm. It is our anchor into this muck. This implies there are other aspects of consciousness or other aspects of mind that are tethered to something somewhere else, even another dimension. Now, the Chaos Lords of the menu want you right here, and believing right here is all there is to you, and all there ever will be. Now, if you can realize that you're mostly not here, it immediately makes the schemes of the creatures seem trivial. The creatures have power as long as they're taken seriously by us. We've all done a great job pushing up their standing by calling them things like Illuminati and other titles of recognition. Obviously, we have to stop doing this. What emotional response would you produce If I told you the anthill out back of your house was planning a big attack on you, the anthill out back was planning a big attack, would you send a big emotional wave out into the ether? No, you wouldn't really give a shit. You wouldn't respond at all if I told you that. What if I made those ants out to be reptilian, archonic ants in league with Enki or Enlil? Then you'd bar the fucking door if I told you that. No, if that happened and you'd be that scared and they elicited such an emotional response that you gave back to them and fed them and increased their power, you'd bar the door. But they wouldn't give a shit because you're producing so much energy, the energy and the frequency that they want, that they don't need to come in. They can just suck your energy through the door. Now, look, I'm just saying collectively if our mindset was we're dealing with ants, the amount of energy going back to prop them up would be less. Okay, I'm not saying at this moment they're not formidable. I'm saying it would be very interesting if collectively, we could cut the leash off. It's that simple. The main drug of the ego is materialism. Materialism and ego are the Ouroboros continually creating and feeding off each other while degrading your soul's essence. Ego in the thinking frontal lobes of the brain is the part of this avatar that draws us lower and away from connecting with a part of consciousness that's not here, but probably or likely somewhere else. We've been led to believe that, quote, thinking in the frontal lobes using English is high intelligence if you can put forth the right words. We study years to be able to do it better than the next guy. You got that from Vickers, work in Essex County, page 72. Are you going to plague that too? Do you have any original thoughts of your own on this matter? You're going to be a fifth-year grad student. You come in here and regurgitating Gordon Wood, trying to impress some girls. And the funny thing about you is we got to move on with this video. Just like that Michael Bolton asshole or Goodwill Hunting, you're suspect. Sounds from the tongue, sounds that roll off the tongue and roll over the lips. That's not impressive. It's not impressive. It's so coveted in this society. It's not impressive no matter what order of words come out. Is a dog barking to go outside to piss high intelligence? The real intelligence we have access to doesn't use the bibble-babble of English and other Romance languages. Language on this planet is a constructed book of spellcraft laid down for all of us a long time ago, way in advance, so we assist them in the creation of their perverse reality. And we do it 100 billion times a day. Thinking in English in the frontal lobes is total bullshit. The cosmic wisdom or inner knowing of a human is accessed from the heart and other places inside of us that have nothing to do with the brain's frontal lobes. Again, there's a reason they call it gut feeling. If the idea comes to us in words through the brain, it's probably Forrest Gump stupid. Yes, stupid is as stupid does. We think in English, so that's stupid does. Have you been to the mall lately? Have you been to the mall lately and watched the people? Bubba from the movie is a genius compared to most mall shoppers. They're even selling chocolate diamonds now down at the mall. These are the stones that De Beers threw in the trash 10 years ago. Guess what? The dummies are lining up to buy even that shit. And it's shit. It's brown diamond. Parts of the brain combined with the heart are the primary tools that allow the immortal aspects of ourselves to interpret this strange place and play out this video game. Remember in the past, we've talked about the brain not generating consciousness, but being some sort of a receptor or some sort of like a direct TV receiving dish, so consciousness can seem like it's coming from behind the eyes. The brain like a walkie-talkie or a conduit or a receiver, but definitely a governor, as it's been dumbed down by who knows what over the centuries. Likely the brain is now a governor that's been dumbed down. So it's the heart and the brain that we need to interpret this strange video game. But it's likely two things have happened over a very long time. The balance between heart and mind has likely been hijacked to favor the brain, to everything to favor the frontal lobes. And more specifically, the ego of the frontal lobes has been crafted to dominate our lives. And people off the street would think that statement is crazy. Just step outside into the city and observe. Look what this society has produced. And people think what they're looking at was produced naturally and organically. Just look around. The man who just purchased the new Corvette because of the potential blowjobs it may land him is considered more normal in this sick society than throughout all of the West. The man that used his money for the new Corvette is more normal than a man who has given up everything to, say, serve an orphan community. That loser's a freak. Hey, what size rims did you get on that Vet, dude? Was that 18-inch? Sweet sound system, bro. What your life should be in this real, R-E-E-L, unfortunately no longer R-E-A-L, life, what it should be is not left for you to discover on your own path. It's force-fed to you by the system that shoves its cue cards into your hand and then gets in your business if you don't read them. The moderators and masters of ceremonies here is the same in everybody's movie. The big two stars are government and the news media, together like Master Blaster in the movie Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Who run Bartertown? I've done that before. Well, not you and me, but the idea is to not even try to run Bartertown. We don't want to run Bartertown. The sickos want to run Bartertown. Let's get the F out of Bartertown. The parts of the story that allow some extemporaneous flexibility are acted out by you inside the tight confines of society and inside the tighter confines of culture. What you think is a giant hotel room suite is a broom closet. That's the wonderful job they've done here. It's not hard to be an applauded actor in this modern play, in this culture. All you need to do is read the script exactly as it was handed to you. The main rule is you must never ad-lib your lines here in this Shakespeare's All the World's a Play. Never go off script. If you're a physician, never ever consider a cancer treatment other than surgery, radiation, or Neulasta. If you're an attorney and the law library now tops 1 million pages, keep thinking and promoting that ignorance of the law is no excuse. Don't ever stop to question it and never push back on anything. If you're a business executive, never make a human choice that hurts ROI. If you work at NASA, never even stop to consider how Neil and Buzz stayed cool in the LEM at 220 degrees in the sun. Perhaps the reason why the latest Star Wars movies are some of the worst ever made, and why all good music is gone, all good music outside of little artists I know that play in little tiny clubs, everything else is completely gone. Maybe there's a universal law at play here, that art must be a reflection of society itself. Is that a law? That art must be a reflection of society itself. And if not, they're trying to conform to a law, well, it's just happening anyway. So I guess it doesn't matter because it is a parallel. Does the law of as above, so below apply to the trivial pursuits as well? Probably. This brings us to the conundrum of this moment in history. I say brings us mutants, or anybody that's looked at the world and said, this shit ain't normal. Which, of course, most people are not in our little bucket. But it brings us to this conundrum in this moment in history. Over time, the script has been too expertly delivered to be the work of, quote, regular old men and women. Things are crafted too perfectly. Too much shit's being pulled off for it to be regular men and women. Relative buffoons like Dick Cheney and Barack Obama on his Pee Wee Herman bike, and Nancy Pelosi on her broom, and maybe it was a Nimbus 2000, and Henry Kissinger, and John McCain, and Chuck Schumer. Oh my, I just go on and on. They're just buffoon after buffoon after buffoon. There have been too many lies here for too long, executed to perfection, with hundreds of thousands having not been in on it. Somehow it works without everybody being in on it. But nevertheless, the trick is pulled off because the people around us buy into it. People screaming at the computer right now saying an inflated tire at the bottom of the World Trade Center isn't really a successful ruse pulled off to precision. But we've talked about it. It really is, because everybody buys into it, and those types of breadcrumbs are placed there for us on purpose. So, guys like John McCain can't even remember what leg to put his fake cast on. I know, of course, that was done on purpose. For whatever sick reason, he put the cast on the wrong leg. It was a symbolism to see who notices. All that shit's done on purpose. But the people carrying out the ruse, like McCain did, just absolute morons. They're not good enough to be doing all this on their own. Something else is at play. There's almost no other explanation. Unnatural means are being deployed to lay down the reality script. Plastic news anchors and retarded crisis actors at shooting events can't be the foundation of such an expertly crafted ruse. If everything rested on the backs of these idiots, they'd be able to maintain this massive ruse and lie about as long as an entire Las Vegas whorehouse could share the same rubber. It's likely they have a means of tapping into the nature of reality itself to pull off these endless capers, schemes, and everything else they manipulate. And the entire global financial markets are manipulated. But that actually makes sense that doesn't require the Elder Wand, is likely done on supercomputers. We don't know exactly how they're doing it, successfully moving billions of lemmings to the sound of their flute. There are hundreds of possibilities ranging from old-fashioned subliminal mind control to actually crafting a reality overlay of some kind, a hack on reality itself, on top of something that's already a simulated realm. Nothing's off the table. The Mandela Effect is likely a side effect of their counterfeit reality that is breaking down on various fronts and has begun to break down. I don't know if I want to say fortunately, but who knows? Overall, if the ruse in any way is breaking down, I'm going to say fortunately, even if there are side effects. Thinking of people in the back room doing it to us is likely not the best way to think about it. Whatever happens may be a product of this reality generation machine that we live in itself. Again, likely no boss level, just minions like George Bush. In the end, it could possibly be for our benefit, as crazy as that sounds. So, how is a masterful deception being pulled over the eyes of billions of people, while a tiny little minority can not only see the lies in it all, we can observe how the quality of the ruse is breaking down and morphing into the theater of the absurd. Oh, it's not morphing into, it's here. The theater of the absurd already came out of the cocoon. It's flying around. The production value of the ruse seemed pretty good in about 1970 or 75 or 80. I believed every word of what Peter Jennings said on the news back then. It's not just that I was blind about 35 or 30 or 25 years ago. I wasn't just blind and dumb. Their production value was better. The role players, like Walter Cronkite, were of top quality. The script they delivered made a lot more sense. There were no comedic elements back then. Now look what we have today. For those who can access just a bit of their third eye, or that type of perception or reading the Matrix code, whatever you want to call suppressed abilities, intentionally suppressed abilities of humanity, the Broadway production of today, which represents reality, is a clown show. Actually, clown show is too nice of a word. A clown show can be a very pleasant production, at a certain circus, a professionalism. I don't know what to call it. It's not a clown show. There's a bit of professionalism and optimism in that. I don't know what you call it. Donald Trump running around, giving his little tweets to piss off every single group he possibly can, and even people that come to this channel from time to time can't realize that that's his role. That's his exact intention, just to tweet and piss people off, and he's just playing a part. Even people that wander upon channels like this still don't see that. My God. Look at these Kavanaugh hearings. What is going on there? I don't want to get into it. I don't want to turn any newbies that stumbled upon this video off. They probably already ran for the hills a long time ago. And then we have Jeffrey Epstein, he's been snatched up. And Matt, you don't believe that? You're not against the pedophiles? Of course I am, but this is a distraction. This is a show. It's a joke. It's not real, in my opinion. They talked about Jeffrey Epstein going into the election. In 2016, they were talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And Trump had gone to the pedo island, and Alex Jones was saying how the Clintons had gone to the pedo island, and my family, who was for Hillary Clinton, told me about how the Republicans were going to the pedo island. So everybody knows about the pedo island, and now he's just finally being brought to justice. I don't know exactly what they're doing here, but I didn't watch it for more than 5 minutes, but it reeks of bullshit. It reeks of bullshit. Well, Matt, isn't exposing pedo scandals, isn't that good? Well, if it was legitimate, it would be good, but not in the way they do it. It's like a pizza gate type thing. They do it in a way where they actually help themselves. I don't want to go into the weeds on this, but this Epstein thing is bullshit. I haven't followed it for more than 30 seconds. It's bullshit. So today's reality is kind of like this. It's like in the height of its popularity, the Broadway play Phantom of the Opera replaced Sarah Brightman and replaced her with a fat, drunk, homeless Al Gore. Just look at this bozo show lineup and whose job it is to deliver modern reality. Look at Kim Jong-un and try not to laugh. Again, watch the Kavanaugh hearings. What do you think's going on there? We can't even go a few days without some absurd or offensive Donald Trump tweet. So how can a play that seemed well acted and perfectly rehearsed in years past seem like a junior high school troupe in the present day? I think something happened along the way. Something happened. But what happened to our reality and when? Why don't our friends and family notice the actors drinking between scenes? And why don't our friends and family notice the styrofoam spray-painted props of today? To gauge how gone all of them are, perhaps the Chaos Lords, they float horrible productions like Hamilton, and then they sit back and observe what we all do. Hey, look! The dummies are still giving standing ovations and tickets are sold out for months to Hamilton. We're farther along in conquering these dopes than we figured. There may be only two possibilities. Either the script was always this pathetic, and a few who can see it today, like me and you, or in the past were mind-controlled along with the rest of humanity into believing the ruse was real. I.e., there was a time when I actually thought 19 guys with true value box cutters brought down $1 trillion defense infrastructure. The other possibility is the archonic types who deliver the script have lost much of their power, and they simply can't deliver the script effectively anymore. So the ruse is breaking down. Or it's a combination of both. It's almost like I've said before, the minions lost their master, and they're trying to keep up the same ruse without the ancient evil still being here. How bad is this place if the Lochnar wanted to fly away from here and get the hell out? Even if the Satan archetype checked out a long time ago, or say right after Watergate, it doesn't mean we'd be free and clear of these minions. They've been practicing and observing the dark arts. The demons that remain are aplenty, and a few of them are well-trained Sith Lords. If the boss level has departed, that wouldn't be the end of our troubles. I think this theory is on the table because I can't quite explain how the ruse has become so pathetically presented recently. Well, at least to we mutants and half-mutants. The people around us don't notice anything's wrong. Again, if their power has waned, some of them still may carry the ancient knowledge over how to influence and affect reality itself. I mean, look at what's the Vatican Library for? Is that a truth drop? I mean, it's just, there's knowledge somewhere. They don't give the general population of masses and great unwashed access to it. They portray it in movies like the Da Vinci Code and Da Vinci Code 2, where they say, only the Pope can check out the Bernstein Bears. You can't check out any of this stuff here. And then to save the Vatican, the Vatican in Da Vinci Code 2 is about to blow up from CERN's antimatter. They let Robert Langdon in, and my God, if he tears out one little page, well, the whole Vatican's about to blow up because of antimatter in the movie. But it's such a disaster that he ripped out a page. Like, what? It's like a truth drop that, Vatican Library represents ancient knowledge that we have, and you great unwashed ain't going to get it. Sir, I'm a devout Catholic. I've been I've given tens of thousands of dollars to the local archdiocese. Blah blah blah. I'd like to go in and check it out. Can I see it? No. Can't the regular people check any books out or go into the Vatican Library? Can you share the knowledge? No. Just understanding the Vatican Library and the way they present it to us, it's all you need to see. It's a sick situation. Look, they've bred human society to be a certain thing. And that begins now with everybody loving their Huxley predicament, no matter how screwed up it gets. We're still meant to love our servitude. Now, we saw in that Kevin Costner movie about cattle, and then we saw that cattle can be free grazed in open country without a pen or without a fence. Remember that movie? Like, we don't take kindly to free grazers around here. It's a pretty good movie. It feels like the controllers have recently lost the electricity that they fed through the fence, and the fence that had once penned in our reality. And they're now trying to free graze us, but with cats. They don't seem to have the tools any longer to execute the ruse to the same degree. However, they still have the knowledge and maybe several millennia of training, at least some of them. Not the real buffoons they put up on the TV. If the big fat face comes up on the TV, they don't understand nothing about nothing, in my opinion. They're just actors. The ancient knowledge here may linger. There are mind control tools and ancient tricks, and now with Apple's help, tech devices are used to control the masses. Why did they spend billions to rush out 5G when nobody asked for it? Are communications companies in the business of spending billions for no reason? If the emperor has no more clothes, they've made it so people barely notice his pecker flopping about. I don't know what makes us different, but there's something we possess, and it's not they live glasses any longer. We don't need no glasses. At this point in time and history, we truly are mutants. In regular people, like when the evidence left behind by reality, the evidence of the lie, the endless script, the endless trick, the ruse, when the evidence lies outside of a certain range, people have been bred not to notice. And what is noticed is never accepted. If the lie is small, then people will notice, oh, what's that little thing? If the true nature of the reality trick is like Twilight Zone stuff, the massive lie is so massive it's outside the visible spectrum of what people can see, let alone accept. They literally can't see it right in front of their face because it's outside the borders of their worldview, the way it's been artificially constructed for them. That's what K through 12 is all about. That's all it's about. Finally, if the elder wand of the Voldemort creature who runs this place is now broken, in 2019 there's a range of modern techniques they can employ to remain on the, quote, throne. They still have an array of cards to choose from old-fashioned subliminal messages that other things best described, no other better word than magic. There seems to be a massive rush, though, into tech, doesn't there? A panic for them to rush into tech. Now, this is their new magic, because the old ways, the old wand seems cracked, doesn't it? Now, why is the most famous quote from Arthur C. Clarke something about the best technology or the highest level of technology becomes indistinguishable from magic? They're in love with that quote from him because that is their mantra to maintain control. That is the playbook right there, what Arthur C. Clarke said. And then Congress, in that creepy bill to make magic a national treasure, there's a bill. They call it a HR House Resolution 10, whatever the number is. They probably should have just numbered 666. Magic will put forth as a national treasure. You can see the bill. I don't know if it ever passed. Anybody know anything about that? Let me know in the comments. I certainly have reviewed it before, but I never followed up to see if it passed. But who cares if it didn't pass? It doesn't mean anything. That just means it's a truth drop. They showed the people that. It doesn't mean if it passed or not. It's still the same truth drop as to what they're up to. But if the elder wand is cracked, then put all your chips on tech and rush into tech. Just in time to save the cracked elder wand. Here comes tech and 5G wireless signals to keep people loving their brave new world. I can't turn on TV any longer without seeing some commercial that is singing some ode to technology as their new god. The latest IBM commercial is Buzz Aldrin, and the rest of the frauds writing a letter to tech. Writing a letter. Dear tech, because there's such a huge push of tech on all of us all the time, it seems obvious that they're relying on technology as a crutch to make up for the fact that in many ways the power is waning. I know of no other way to explain it. There's no other explanation. These controllers are so in love with pushing tech on us so quickly all the time that they're rolling out billion-dollar projects nobody even asked for. Everything we see on TV is about how wonderful a smartphone is. What do people give such a shit about phones? Phones, 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 phones. All the fucking time. Phones. You know, who gives a shit? You know, this is what the system says you should revolve your world around. So people follow along. There hasn't been too much in phones that have no great advances really in about 10 years. No off-the-chart advances in about 8 to 10 years. By this time, with the way tech's rolling along, the phone should have a feature where an arm comes out and literally reaches down my pants when I want it to. That should exist, but they haven't done anything with phones much. Look at Nissan's new commercial for their electric car, the Leaf. It proclaims, "The best tech you own may be in your driveway." You know what? Fuck your tech. Here's my letter. Dear tech, fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Let's flush all the tech and return back to what human beings should be doing with other human beings. The path of the real human being doesn't have a big smelly smartphone on it. Also, interestingly, dear tech, that whole IBM, there is no other company creepier than IBM. Absolutely not. It takes the cake. Is there any coincidence they'd be putting up Buzz Aldrin as their spokesperson now? I mean, it just you could predict that was coming. They recycled his ass about 10 years ago. Where's Buzz? He's been in the same motel room drunk for 35 years. Well, wake him up. We need to recycle his ass. It'll convince about 5 people that we went to the moon. Get his ass sober, boil the coffee, and put him on television. Can he dance? Yeah, we'll put him on Dancing with the Stars. Can he act? No, we'll put him in Transformers anyway. Dear tech, this is an attempt at personification and breathing a sort of egregore life into something that should be no more than a tool to assist people. The commercial Dear Tech is a personification and creating life into something that should have no life. In my opinion, that's why the commercial's crafted that way. And millions of people watch, and it runs all the time, and it ran throughout all of Wimbledon. And if people think of writing a letter to it in some way, it gives it's like creating Frankenstein's monster, and they're close to animating it. You know, one only writes a letter to something that can eventually write back. How did we all forget humans were supposed to interact with each other personally? You know, I should practice what I preach, I know. I'm kind of in this bunker doing this for the next few months, and all the kind people that have reached out to me, I'll eventually would like to meet people and talk to people. I'm picture like Bruce Wayne when he was at the worst case of his recluse stage, when he wouldn't leave the mansion, and that's kind of where I am now. But it's no mansion. I'll someday emerge from this and try to work on my people skills again. The script was actually believable in the past. Its foundation was properly mixed concrete. Today, their script is bricks without straw. They can't encrypt reality from us anymore, can they? But are they really trying to? Or if they are, it's pretty pathetic. For crying out loud, they present people on the news who've been in some sort of school shooting, who have little bandages and band-aids across the bullet wounds, and they're out from the hospital the next day. And recently a kid that was shot through the neck, Chris Jansen on MSNBC, sits next to him and says, "So you were shot in the head like just this morning." I think it was the day before. And he just sits there with a band-aid over his neck and head, but he was shot in the head, and he just sits there conducting an interview wearing his hospital bracelet. Now, if that's not a poor presentation of the script, I don't know what is. All interviews, of course, must be done with the hospital bracelet on, because that surely tells the viewer it's all for real. The script now is so bad, what are they going to do next? tell us the moon is in the Earth's atmosphere? Oops. Yeah, they did that. They did that one already. The moon's in the Earth's atmosphere. Well, what will they tell us next? They'll tell us something like planet Uranus smells like farts and sulfur. Your anus smells like farts. Oops, so they told us that one too. The script is running short on ideas. They told us Uranus smells like farts. Well, what will they tell us if they told us that? Will they tell us the key figure who was instrumental to the Allies' success on D-Day was Elmer Fudd? That one doesn't exist yet, does it, guys? No, not yet? Well, if they tell people that Elmer charged the beach first with his potato gun, today's masses would probably believe it. Oh, I see. That's why Fudd suddenly left Looney Tunes. He was killed on D-Day. Why the script has become such a joke is almost the greatest clue this reality affords in trying to understand it. The why of what's happening is inconsequential to the fact that it's happening. The acting's too bad to just say the lead actor had an off night. The lead is a babbling idiot who walks out on the stage of reality with his cock out. Yes, it's frustrating to us why others can't see it. We point it out to our husbands and our wives and our brothers and our sisters and our best friends, and they don't notice anything's wrong. They applaud the drunken actor with his cock out, who was the singer formerly known as Al Gore. No matter what this matrix really is or why Voldemort has lost his power is irrelevant at this point. It is. Fun to ponder, irrelevant in the way we need to live the rest of our lives. The only truth is, we are here, and this strange play goes on. It's time to deliver your lines and my lines. How do we start? First, trash your cue cards. We're all still carrying some cue cards, society's cue cards. Trash them. When you recognize that you're reading from a cue card, recognize it and trash it. You don't need a costume, just the light inside you. If you don't know what to do, start by knowing what not to do. The script will clearly show you what it wants from you. The script produces anger in the people who can see. So then we know the best way to combat it is to not become angry. The script of government produces fear and anxiety all the time. Anxiety can be drastically reduced or eliminated by eliminating attachment. Somebody has nothing to lose, has nothing to fear. When the script is not obvious, listen for its whisper. It's always whispering. It's always trying to pull you in a certain direction. What's the script whispering today? Something as obvious as move into a bigger house and utilize that letter that just came in that says, you've just been extended a $400,000 credit line. You're pre-approved. Don't listen to this siren song, for it will always be directed at your ego. Think of your spirit and your ego as two fat men stuck in the same tiny birdcage. Your spirit and your ego are stuck in the same birdcage. If you feed one, it'll crush the other when it gets big enough. That's good if you're feeding the spirit. For most in this world, the ego is Jabba the Hutt, and what's left of the spirit is that little creature watching Jabba's tail go up and down behind Princess Leia, laughing. Never fight Voldemort Bush head on. Starve Voldemort W. Bush. Give him nothing to feed on from you, for he loves to suck the energy and frequency of your fear and your constant anxiety. He even wants you attached to NFL teams, so when they lose, you feel like shit all day. Ultimately, no answers in life, of course, can be found out there, or anything that we call the screen. The winning move is within all of us. Getting pissed and protesting by marching with signs is an attempt to seek answers out there. Everything out there is the counterfeit reality they created. Everything out there is a fugazi. If someday a sim wakes up inside the game, the video game, with self-awareness as a sim, will he ever be able to take over the game he himself is in? He can't change the game. He can only find a way out by looking in and finding the part of himself that's not in the game. Maybe there's a part of himself that's not in the game. That's the better way to approach it. Not run around and play by all the game's rules. The game was laid out by something or someone. He has no reign over the zeros and ones of the game coding. or the texture mapping created by someone else. They want 100% of our essence trapped in this USS Callister. Black Mirror episode, if anybody hasn't seen it, you really should go out of your way to see it. It's amazing on many fronts. USS Callister. So harden your own defenses and circle your own wagons. The way the system has gotten inside us is using their double agent, our own ego. Your ego that covets a new Corvette actually works for the system, doesn't work for you. What is that famous line? I have seen the enemy and he is us. I have seen the enemy and he is me. Is that a truth drop? Yeah, probably. Relates to some, I don't know, the War of 1812, Admiral so-and-so on the Lake Erie or something said, I've seen the enemy and he is us, me. And when this stuff is inserted like that and pervades our society, multi-generational, then it's there for a reason as a truth drop. We've talked about that phenomenon many times. The ego, literally what you call you, may be the ultimate enemy here, the ultimate device or mind virus doing the bidding of the system. A degree of thoughts that come into your head may not even be coming from what you call you. If you are a being of spirit having a 3D experience, would you say your ego is more part of this 3D realm and your brain more part of this 3D realm, or part of your eternal self, part of your eternal spirit, wherever that may be? Which would you choose? Yes, of course your brain and your ego, frontal lobes, is of this realm, and it is a cousin to everything here. This may not be the best way to put it, but it seems like the Skeletors here are trying to almost separate ego from your eternal self or divine self. And then, of course, they want everything you are to identify with only the ego. That's just who you are. And, of course, its twin or its bosom buddy, the avatar body. That's all you are. That's all you identify with. And then as an atheist, you're just going in the dirt when it's all over. That certainly appears to be one of Skeletor's main goals. We don't know exactly what's going on, and we'll never know all the components. This seems like really bad news, but it's not. That's just the nature of this reality. Just chalk it up. It's just the nature of this experience. The realization to stop looking for everything is the final winning move. The dark ones lay breadcrumbs all over the place for those like you and I who can see. The breadcrumbs are meant to draw us outside of ourselves and focus on the screen and focus on the matrix. A fully inflated landing gear tire at the bottom of the World Trade Center is an intentionally placed breadcrumb. We've been over many, many times. It's worth going over again. There's new people here all the time. Our focus, it should be away from the matrix and only on the important aspects of yourself. A shooting victim who gets out of the hospital the next day after 3 bullets to the chest is a breadcrumb. So you focus on the matrix and not on yourself. It doesn't matter if one day they've taken down all of our YouTube channels. And there are other alternatives, I know, but at some point Big Brother could even remove all that. They have slightly bit of control over the internet, and they'll do whatever they need to do in the future. It's not like BitChute and all these alternatives they're safe from Big Brother. No, they play right into the playground built by Big Brother and built by the 1984 system. I agree they'll be the last to go. But look, guys, it doesn't matter if all of it is wiped out. We no longer need to convince ourselves of what the screen is trying to do to us. We don't need to convince ourselves of anything. The main thing we've been doing for 10 years is trying to convince ourselves. For we couldn't possibly fathom the unbelievable nature of this world. Of course, no doubt. It's beyond anything we could have imagined, and by a factor of 1,000,000. However, today we know the nature of this world and the nature of the beast. The beast system is an apt description. That's what all those YouTube channels were about for so many years, and why we watched every day. We sensed what was going on, but it was so bizarre. We had to look to other people to reaffirm our own beliefs. Now we know everything. Matt, we don't know the who, what, when, where, why, and how they're pulling everything off. We know we don't give a shit about that any longer. We know everything we need to know for ourselves. So we've won. There's no more self-convincing necessary. Okay? With this new and basic understanding, we can move on and have already won. This life journey is about slowly turning our Titanic, slowly turning our attention from everything out there over many, many years to seeing that everything out there is total bullcrap, and this is a life test, this is a life journey, this is a school, this is a filter. We have to make ourselves into a certain state using the tools that this realm affords. Then the attention is, what does that mean? What do I need to do for myself? But simple steps. Titanic doesn't just turn on a dime. What are the simple steps? Well, start starving the system. Withhold your attention and energy whenever possible. The rice experiment, by itself, proves we have massive power to shape and influence reality with our thoughts and our attention and our emotion going out into the ether. I don't care how people get triggered about double slit experiment and all that quantum stuff, and people triggered. I don't buy into every aspect of it either. But I know there's hundreds and hundreds of people on YouTube that have done the rice experiment, and the rice that's given love is bright white, and the other rice, you would never eat it. It's disgusting. It's black and mushy and moldy, and it's just, this happened too many times. It's proof. It's no scam. It's proof. At least our emotional intentions influence reality. That's at the minimum. Okay? Now, this is why the beast of this world crafts our TV and movies with violence, the love of ego, the love of status, money, the love of phallus, sex acts, and the rap and hip-hop community, respect. You respect or you're going to get shot. You disrespect me. All this stuff is crafted because the screen is bullshit. It needs us to reflect reality back at it. Create the sick reality at once. The entire purpose of TV is to elicit certain responses in us. They need us for reality creation itself, and the rice experiment improves it. Proves it. So we know what to do. They want us to turn right, so turn left. Take time every day to think about the world that you want to see, that you're imagining it becoming. Simple things. Think of everybody picking up trash, not just you. Yeah, I get angry. I go up and down my street, pick up trash, and I start, in the past, would start yelling out, you're allowed to clean up your own lawn, you son of a bitch. I would get angry as I would be the only one picking up the trash, but that isn't the approach. That's exactly what it wants. Think of everybody coming around to this someday. And, the reflection will be back on nature and beautiful oceans and etc. Intention, visualization, imagery. Think about people helping each other out without seeking reward or payment of some kind. Express love, gratitude, appreciation, even in the apple you're about to eat. The legend was, remember, people who speak to their plants and flowers had better plants and flowers. I've observed this. I'm for some reason I've always been bad with plants and flowers, but I've been around people, relatives that actually speak to plants and flowers, give them little touches, and these plants did they're like award-winning plants. They just love it. There's something to it. I don't think it's listening, but you're in energy you're giving to it. Now, like with things like the rice experiment, we know why that works. Imagine a world just no chemtrails. In some way, if many of us did these sort of things, we'd be hindered by it. In the past, I'd look up at the chemtrail and say, get angry, you son of a bitch, you're angry. That's just you're here now. You will not be here in the future. Go away. Controlled emotion, intention, imagery. Enough people did it. The rice experiment proves it works. Think of the sick minions of the U.S. Congress, just losing all status and standing, becoming laughing stocks. It's like the Harry Potter, the evil thing comes out of the broom closet wardrobe, and it's in the guise or role or as a doppelganger. It's morphed into the thing most terrifying to you, and the spell is a play on the word ridiculous. And you transform it into something ridiculous and laugh at it, and it's a boggart. It loses all power. Humongous truth drop right there. Humongous truth drop. Go on YouTube. Go watch the boggart scene. Do that to everything that they present to us. Just imagine them a laughingstock, for that's the opposite of getting pissed off at them. They act in a manner to piss you off by design. Donald Trump's role, like no other in politics, his absolute role above everything else is to piss off about 60 to 70% of the population. And he has gotten under their skin like you obviously like we couldn't imagine anybody could as a politician. They hate him, they loathe him, but they don't realize it's exactly what response they want from people. It's obvious. They want everybody angry about everything. Think of them as, you get upset at slugs and snails. No, don't put them in a bag though, like my uncle used to in sprinkles. He'd put the salt in the bag and shake it up, and they would just disintegrate to nothing. Just sweep off the slugs and the snails. Don't get them with salt. The salt is your valuable energy, and they crave the salt lick. Simply mentally sweep them off the walkway into the tall grass, moving every ugly aspect aside to make room for a better life and a better you. And then if you make a better you, more importantly, a better you, a better world follows. Now, that just sounds like New Age stuff. Well, guess what? I might not have put it exactly right, but, that is the answer. Okay, there's no other way. Put it in whatever terms you like. However, regarding New Agers, there are those that take it too far and say, well, we should all love everybody. Like people would tell me, love Anderson Cooper. No. I'm gonna stop short there. I don't see that as realistic or necessary. Pity the monsters. Pity Anderson Cooper. That's more appropriate for me. Why would I give them my strongest and most powerful energy, love and prayer? Nope. I ain't doing it. Not giving that to Anderson Cooper. The Anderson Cooper pooper creature ain't getting any love from me. But they're not getting my hate either, if you see what I mean. Don't give them that either, because they like to lick that salt too. Simply don't feed them. This life and this reality has been hijacked, but the meaning is pretty much still the same as it always was, no matter how much you think it's been hijacked, or if you think that is the role of the Hillary Clinton creatures and the foundation itself to help us. Nevertheless, it's meant, this life journey is meant to change your soul or change your spirit via the real meaning of alchemy. If something in life is important, the system assigns a stupid lure to distract us away from it. Now, here's a very simple one they've done with alchemy. What have they done with that concept? Our whole lives, it's just about alchemy. It's only just about these dummies trying to turn lead into gold, just about trying to get rich and greed. What a bunch of morons we thought as we heard these stories in years past about alchemists just spending all their time trying to turn lead into gold. These dummies, they're never going to do that. That's all alchemy is. Why didn't they just give up after a few centuries of failure if that's what they really were trying to do? Smelting is dirty business. Of course it wasn't about turning lead into gold. Somebody might have tried that for a few weeks. It didn't work. It's put there, that whole story about alchemy is put there to mislead people about what alchemy really is. I don't understand it. I'll take Levette's word for it. But it's mostly about remaking ourselves. We all seem to operate under the same assumption that on the day of our death, we'll essentially be the same entity who came in. Sure, most people like to think that they've done what they could over the course of their lifetime to improve themselves and to be recognized as a good person and having to some degree evolved over the lifetime. But that all implies small improvements to the same thing. Like repainting a car, adding leather bucket seats. It's still the same Dodge Duster. Beyond aging, our avatar's appearance, beyond aging, the appearance of the avatar never changes. But what if we can use this life to completely change ourselves, our soul essence, our divine, just a complete overhaul, a complete alchemy? What if that's possible? Not a small upgrade, but a metamorphosis. Why not believe this life is here so you can actually, literally, from in ways you can't see, or spiritual essence, emerge from the cocoon as something completely different? Why just not think of this life literally as the cocoon? And most people will always be stuck as a caterpillar. They'll be inside the cocoon at a caterpillar forever, watching porn inside the cocoon, and they've got 100 arms in there so they can play with themselves very efficiently. But none of them are going to try to really emerge from into the butterfly and level up. And the realm here, it calls out to us. It says, everything's here. Everything you need is here if you just look for it, you dumb bastards. Look, we can level up into something completely different from a soul spiritual perspective. A level up may be something completely new, because we've never heard one minion or any creature of this system or the news talk about this big idea or any of these big ideas. Then it means if we talk about these ideas, we've likely hit on something that Pooper Cooper doesn't want us talking about. In summary, no matter what you want to call it, it has a lot of synonyms. You could say the beast system, society, what I call the screen, modern culture, whatever it is, it will send you 1 million memos a day reminding you that you're only two things. You are ego, remember, you are ego and the avatar. And you need to get the avatar into the gym for the 6-pack ripped abs, because that'll feed the ego. You can be one giant Ouroboros with yourself. And then when you master that as a good little citizen, even if you manage to do everything you can with these two, the ego and the body, like the American Psycho, well, in the end of the day, that's worthless anyway, because they tell you you're just a speck of dirt in the middle of a lifeless universe, and you're going to dust anyway as an atheist. How wonderful the American Psycho playbook is. This system gives you the opportunity to feed both ego and avatar all day long. And that will surely make you a success on your business card, which is a catalyst for more sex acts. Feeding these two things, like getting a big promotion does, or getting ripped abs does, or all the other wonderful metrics about success, that leaves nothing on your plate for your soul and spirit. It's a very powerful thing to truly believe that you have the power to use this realm to completely change and morph and level up your soul spirit essence. Inner knowing tells us this life is a brutally direct approach, and, for lack of a better words, the hard way. There's a chance that we agreed to come into this realm knowing we would lose all memory. We accept that as normal, but it's odd we remember nothing. It's the primary basis on which the minions of the system have convinced us we are nothing now, and we are going in the dirt soon to be nothing. From nothing into nothing. What an existence. Thanks, System and Screen. You've done a hell of a job screwing us all over. But guess what? There's a lot of us now that are coming into full Jedi level 10, and it don't work no more, System and Screen. And we welcome anybody that wants to come with us.